In the center of the Carpathian Basin, there exists a people whose language and culture have no affinity with other nations. The Hungarians. But who are they exactly? Where do they come from? Hungarian legends, along with foreign historiography, assert that the Hungarians are the descendants of the Huns and the Scythians. The nomad people of the Scythian Empire ruled the steppe during the ancient times. For centuries, this has defined the Hungarian identity. Today, we have the help of genetic tools and methods to determine the origin of this nationality. Archaeogenetics. In the 5th century, the nomadic nations of Eastern Eurasia began to move westward. This is what we call migration. Imagine the Eurasian steppe as a highway. It is the highway of peoples and cultures. The nomadic nations traveled enormous distances along this route to the western endpoint, the Carpathian Basin. The Hungarian nation of Árpád arrived to the Carpathian Basin via this route, not showing similarities with any other Slavic nation around them at all. How was this possible, and where were they from? The homeland of the Hungarians was somewhere in the Eurasian steppe. From here, they set off on their journey of thousands of kilometers. On their way, they met many tribes, and many of them merged with the Hungarians. They finally arrived in the second half of the 9th century in the Carpathian Basin, which they settled on as their home. The Carpathian Basin was already inhabited by many, for example the Avars. But the Hungarians did not come with swords and blood. The Hungarians were welcomed peacefully and finally succeeded in establishing a strong state with their leadership in the Carpathian Basin for centuries. At first they ruled under the title of Grand Prince, but then once they adopted Christianity, they transitioned to a kingdom. Those who now rest in the cemeteries of the conquest were part of the success of the emerging Hungarian state. About 20,000 such graves from the time of the conquest have been found in the Carpathian Basin so far. The archaeogeneticists of the Institute of Hungarian Research took samples from these graves. During archaeogenetic analysis, the samples go through a complex examination. The researchers first detach the stone bone from the skull, then make a powder out of it. Through this process, DNA can be extracted. DNA stores human genetic information, and this is passed on from generation to generation. By comparing genetic samples collected from around the world, we can determine the distribution of genes specific to a given geographic region and people. Studies have shown that the genetic configuration of the conquerors is very mixed. They share both European and Asian features. Experts have discovered that a significant portion of the conquering Hungarians' DNA shows matches with the people of Inner Asia's DNA. That was once the empire of the Asian Huns who ruled the area. The new results from the Institute of Hungarian Research show that the Hungarians and the Asian Huns were relatives. To prove this with certainty, further examinations are needed on Hun samples in Mongolia to find the genetic origins of the Huns. Research on the Asian Huns has enormous potential for further understanding ancient Hungarian history. It can reveal a much more complete picture on the origins of Hungarians. In the rest of this series, we can get answers to these exciting puzzles of Hungarian history.